All right, we are live.
Yeah,
welcome back to another episode of Comics de la Muerte, episode 23, Dinosaurs versus Marsbots, by this man, Gary. How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. And as always, I'm Ronnie Gunter, Crimson Owl Comics, and my co-host, Frogbreaker Studios, Jason Alexander.
Good evening.
And first off, you know, we said it before in the before we went live. Thank you for sharing your book and being a supporter of the channel, because after we were live and we did stuff with Scott Circlin and the Artcasters, you automatically jumped on to watching our stuff, and we really appreciate that.
Oh,
yeah, man, that's awesome.
I love what you guys do. I'm not just saying that because you know are doing my books right now, but I mean even before, as you know, I was in the chats. I was a fan.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for a new comic channel where people are talking about comics, and really, like, you can feel the love. You can tell that I just like what you're doing, going page by page and really noticing like the little things. That's a lot of fun for me to watch.
It's what makes, like, we've learned, and it's like Ronnie is kind of like the curator of like the books that we review on the channel. So he's always like bringing this stuff, and it's stuff 100% that I would never have picked up in my life. And it's like, man, this exists, like, and it's kind of what I wanted to do, but like it all, like, there's a template to at least like some things to pick off of, and it's always something different. So it's just like, this has been like, this book has been like the tippy top of the books that I've enjoyed, and I've enjoyed most of them, but like this is a special one, y'all. Like, and I'm not just saying it because Gary's here, like, but from the art to the story to the effort, like, you see the effort in the book. Like, there's attention to detail. The items are real. The cars are real. Like, the robots look textured. Like, it looks like it makes sense that I'm looking at this robot with two aliens sitting side by side in it. It's like, this is a Honda Civic on Mars. Like, there you go. You know?
Right.
Nice.
It's just good stuff, man. I really enjoyed it. Every page.
Well, I appreciate that. The level of research and prep that goes into each one is considerable. So it's nice to see people notice it. Like, that's
Well, that's for everyone, what you do it for.
Yeah, exactly. And for everyone who's looking at the page right now, you pretty much see this soldier throwing basically a box on the robot. And for you as the artist, can you really give like insight on how do you really prep on getting shadow and blood effect and just the whole like 3D angles and all the angles of the robot, when you pretty much have to work from scratch without any color?
Okay, so I'm gonna try and keep this answer short. That's actually, I could go on and on and on about what goes into a page, but I'll try and like focus a little bit. So, I mean, first of all, like when it just comes to the concept of this page, when I was writing the script, the basic problem I had was, if my dinosaurs, if I'm treating them like real animals, how would you even use them in a combat situation? Like, how would you point a dinosaur at an alien or a robot or something and get it to do what you want it to do? So I thought about it, and I decided with my backstory that the Styracosaurs, which you're going to see in a few pages, are super territorial, and they're very like aggressive. And maybe if it hears something that it interprets as like a rival male, it will charge and attack. So it's like, all right, so maybe then the soldiers have to affix some kind of a loudspeaker on anything they want it to attack that will make a noise that the Styracosaur will be like, oh, that's a male, I better gore it. Like, that was kind of my basic. So it's like, all right, well, now if that's my premise.
It's like primal missile guidance.
Yes, it's like, how do I make this animal's DNA go crazy and go like, oh, I gotta get. So then you start looking at like, all right, well, what do like military, like GI issued loudspeakers look like? So you start going down that Google rabbit hole. And that's like Squawk Box you see, that's like I forgot the name of it. I don't have it in front of me, but that's like just an army you know, loudspeaker that you'll see. You get that and you think, well, how would it attach to the robot? Well, probably some sort of magnet clamp thing, and it would need to be flexible because you don't know where it's.
Oh, I think he froze. Yeah, I think he froze.
I think he got stuck looking at his awesome artwork.
Right.
But no, it's just like, it really escalates here because.
Am I back?
You're back. Yeah. Welcome back, Gary.
Something happened. I don't know. So you come up, well, how would it affix to the robot? Once I figured that out, and then we didn't even talk about figuring out what the robot looks like. For me, because I'm a nut about making sure everything's accurate and consistent, I do a lot of modeling in SketchUp, so I have like a virtual reference I can position and look at and use for my drawing.
That's awesome.
So I made both the speaker, like this magnetic speaker thing in SketchUp, which is like a 3D modeling program if you're not familiar, and the robot. There's like I made that, and then it's positionable. It's like a little doll. I can position its arms, position its legs, pose it how I want, and now there's my reference for when I'm drawing. Every page I did, both in 75 and 97, that was my weekly assignment. My rate is a page a week. That's what I hold myself to.
Yeah.
So at the end of each page, I kind of just wipe my memory, and now I have this new page problem to figure out. And usually day 1 or 2 is setting up my panels on a blank page, writing all my text, because I have that from the script, and figuring out where that's going to be in each panel. And then gathering my whatever assets I might need. So if I have reference photos, I need to get those in my document. For like this blood effect, like I have like a whole folder of just blood spatter, like, you know, any kind of reference I might need to kind of look at it. Where, you know, I just was spending like
going on kamikaze,
just Googling like splattered paint, splattered blood, blood stain, spots, you know, anything where it's like, oh, that's useful, and I'm gathering all that up. For the soldiers, I don't have it nearby. I got a figure, the whole Black Hawk Down thing, if you remember that military fiasco. I have a Delta Force 12-inch action figure of like that era. Like, and I used that as my reference for all the soldiers because it's just coincidentally about the same time. It was 97 or 98, something like that. So like I gather all this stuff together for each new page and just figure like, all right, do I have all my ducks in a row? Do I have everything I need to look at? And then I just start chipping away at it. And I give myself, like I said, a week. So there's each page it's a monster. It's a little monster.
Great. But that's definitely awesome that you literally went about that approach by like making a 3D model in a program. I mean, that just really helps you for like anyone who wants to like create something from your mind and not having to always look at a reference and trying to take that reference. And it's like, okay, maybe I'll take this car part and bend it and twist it this way to make a robot, you know? So it's awesome that you did it from scratch. So pretty cool.
And I'm, you know, and when you're doing your own work, you start to realize those things that you care a lot about that maybe nobody else does, but you do. So since it's your project, you're going to do it. I am a kind of a stickler when it comes to consistency page to page. And it would drive me bananas if the Marsbot looked one way on one page and then 4 pages later looked a little different, like his proportions were a little different. Like I want him to look the same no matter where you're seeing him, no matter what angle. And to do that, you kind of need a legit reference. Like you really, you need to be able to say how big this thing is and how it's built and how it moves and all that. So,
well, you know, it counts for a lot for the fan base as somebody who can speak from the fan base of UFO kids, because, you know, you grow up with, these are the shapes that UFOs come in. You have the cigar shape, the salsa shape, and then you might have like one bigger one. But any other story that had different shaped UFOs, like even as a kid, I'm like, I don't know if I believe this one over the cigar shape, because that's at least So if you saw these robots touching the Earth, man, they're all gonna look the same. Like that's because all the UFOs come out of the mothership, and all the UFOs look the same. So all the gray aliens look the same. So all the vehicles that the gray aliens use would have to look the same. It's just it's space science, I didn't make these rules, Right. It's just good shit, man. Like it really, really is. Like, and
I like the fact that you use 2 aliens instead of 1 to pretty much control this giant machine. Yeah, it gives it like, okay, there's so many aspects, and let alone you can't operate 1 giant machine by yourself. So it's really cool that how you put that aspect in there.
Let's ask Ronnie. Last week, me and Ronnie were wondering, does 1 alien control the left side, like the left arm and the left leg?
Jason's going.
She's going deep.
Or does 1 alien control the arms and the other one controls the legs?
It's funny. I've never I liked that. To be honest, that had never occurred to me that they were doing it sort of like hemispheres. Like one was doing one side, one was doing the other. Right. That was an interesting idea. I thought of it more so like the alien language, I know the translation of, so I had to figure out what they're talking about, like when I'm writing it. The way I imagine is you have one that's basically a pilot and kind of the commander, and you have another that's more like a navigation radar, like someone is doing something like that. So when you look at their dialogue translated, one is basically saying things like there's something coming from the west, or do you see this over here, or we're getting like stuff like that. Where the other guy's
like a fighter jet.
Yeah, right.
They're just side by side instead of front and back.
Correct.
I see. I guess I'll allow it since it's yours.
And sorry people for the internet.
Maybe these guys have
and sorry people for the internet connection. I don't know whose that is. But yeah, I like the fact that you picked this dinosaur just because I'm a fan of Triceratops and all that stuff, and I just got really happy that you picked like instead of a T-Rex you went with like this type of dinosaur. So
the T-Rex,
you won my book there.
Yeah, you gotta hold back on the T-Rex. The T-Rex is pretty obvious, and even a Triceratops is kind of obvious.
Sideburns, what's up, man?
Styracosaurus was always. Both the dinosaurs in this were both my childhood favorites, so it's like that's what you put in there. T-Rex, you gotta kind of, that's like the Emperor in Star Wars. You don't show him in the first movie. Like you gotta like T-Rex is, you gotta save that. You gotta keep your powder dry. But like I thought this it's like, let's show some exotic ones, let's show some weird ones. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it still felt more real because it was still close enough to like a rhino that it would have just been terrifying to see. Yeah, in the middle of a space fight,
Yeah, I wanted it to be, and I thought especially this one, like it's suitably intimidating. Like if you were a human there, like you would not want to be anywhere near this thing while it's doing its thing. And the same with the other ones. The raptor type ones are Deinonychus, which is sort of like, it's like a large raptor. It's not as big as a Utah raptor, but it's kind of it's about like maybe about the size of a Great Dane, like about that big, which for an alien would be perfect. The aliens are small, so like that's big enough. Like that's big enough to be really dangerous. I wanted those also, even though they're not giant, to be really scary looking, where they just look sharp and mean, and like
it's the eyes, man.
The eyes.
It's the eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wanted them to look a little dumb, and like I forgot who someone had I forgot who it was. Someone read it and said like they look like something that's just meant to like walk around and bite things. Like that's
killing machine.
Like, they're just like a mouth with feet to move the mouth around. Like they're not smart. They're a little dangerous, a little unpredictable.
Right.
Well, I was going to say, anyone
biting the soldier's finger off just for no reason other than his finger was there.
And I thought that was not only is it a nice little horror moment and a nice little body horror moment to show like what happens to his hand, but I thought it was important for the story that I'm telling that you see that these aren't like canines. They aren't trained smart animals. Like they're just kind of mean. like, and they're dangerous. And like once you
it's a last ditch effort. Yeah.
And you don't want to be near this crate when it opens. Like you just want them to be near it, but not you. Yeah.
I was gonna say, for anyone who doesn't think like, what did you call this one that comes from like almost the Triceratops family in a way? What was the name?
Styracosaur.
Yeah, like anyone who doesn't find those dinosaurs scary, if you grew up in the 80s and 90s and you went to a Chuck E. Cheese where they had like the Jurassic Park arcade, they literally had like a storm of Triceratops running towards you trying to kill you. I remember that, so just got to throw that out there.
Well, some of it I think is just making it real. You know, as real.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, like even hippos, which don't look scary at all, kill people all the time. So like, it's just the thing.
And they're actually the most deadliest.
Yeah. I think they. I don't know if this is true, but I guess they kill more people than lions do, or something.
Yeah, they actually on the History Channel they had crocodiles, lions, and hippos. Hippos are actually the most like deadliest animal that kills humans. I mean, they'll just go after them.
So I think part of the challenge of this was to try and get you in the headspace of like, what would it really be like to see a dinosaur, you know, in person, and how, especially something this big, like would be really unsettling. Like you just, just being around like a bull would make you kind of on edge. Like, and that's like nothing. Like this thing would run right over a bull. So like this, I want that little bit of unpredictability and scariness with them.
Yeah, what must you think? Like, what must you think if you're watching military fight aliens,
right?
And then dinosaurs show up.
Well, and this one had another layer of trickiness to write because you have the eyewitness. She's not a 6-year-old boy. She doesn't know dinosaurs. She doesn't know, like, you know, and like even the first one. She doesn't even recognize what she's looking at. That doesn't look like any dinosaur she's ever seen, especially in 97. You know, like she doesn't even, that's why she's like, are they like bird wolves? I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'm even seeing. And this, she misidentifies as like, you know, basically a Triceratops because she doesn't know all the different types. So she's just like, but she knows that well enough from like pop culture. It's like, oh, it's, you know, the one with the horns. But.
And before we get more into the whole like scales and everything, how did you really approach like setting the scenery with adding detail, but not too much with the black and white like you have with this panel?
Yeah, it's you know, it's a lot of back and forth. Like sometimes, you know, you've got it right when you've gone too far. And, you know, and that's so like you just keep messing with it. And I tend to want to start very minimal. Like I tend to do like, well, what's the least I can do to kind of give you a sense of what you're looking at. And then you just keep adding, you know, until like you feel, I don't know, there's that weird point where you think like, maybe this is it. And then you usually go over the edge where it's like, no, that's too much. And so you undo, and then you just call it there. This, you know, I was, with only a few little exceptions in both books, I was really militant about keeping it black and white. Something sweet.
That's my chair.
Yeah, what is?
That's my chair.
Like what? It's like some clown is folding balloon now.
Well, I do have red hair. I do have red hair.
So, I lost my train of thought. So I wanted to really do black and white. And as you observed with the 75 review, like literal black and white, no grayscale. No, like I really, as often as I could, I wanted to be black or white because I love that. I grew up loving pen and ink above all else. That was like always my thing. And to this day, when I see uncolored comic pages, to me, that always looks better. Like I have to admit, like anytime like someone will post their inks, I'll say like, oh, nice. And then they'll post like, oh, now I've got the flats in. I'm kind of like, you know, I like something about, I don't know why. It's just whatever, however I grew up, whatever art I was seeing, I just always liked the look of black and white. So
it just holds your eye on the page longer. Like
for some reason,
it's striking.
it's striking, and for some reason to me, it just reads as more realistic. Where like comic book colors just immediately make it look comic booky to me, you know. Where, like there's something about black and white that's just a little, I don't know. So the challenge is always figuring out how to do complicated things like scenes like this with, you know, negative space and black. Like it can really, some things are a lot harder than others. Fortunately, you know, D versus M is overwhelmingly, it's like kind of desert stories. And I lean into this idea of you're in this kind of blinding, bright environment. And that helps me with the black and white. It helps me where it's like, well, I can just wash everything out. And it gives you this impression of like, it's just so bright. It's like noon in the
hot. Yeah,
it's hot. And like you're only seeing like shadows, basically. Everything else is blending together.
Yeah. It held me on those first few pages of the two detectives in the car, Ruben and George, like because you could feel the heat in that car, and it put me in that whole environment right away, because I've sat in cars in suits in heat. And it's like once you're there, now you're on the ride for the story, and it's continued all the way through to this volume as well. So
for sure,
well done.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And now we're going into the actual dinosaurs and more the detail. As an artist myself, I love the detail you put into the scales, and just like the texture actually showing like the different parts of the dinosaur broken up, how like his eye is made of more of like flesh, while the other ones are like more made of like palette scales. Just really awesome work.
Yeah, that was a lot of like just looking at. It's funny, I think. So yeah, there's a couple different skin types that I decided, like textures. His muzzle, I think, as a reference, I was looking at, of all things, just for behind the scenes trivia, I found some really good high res images of the skin on a rhino's butt. And it was exactly, I was looking at it, I was like, that's, I think about, that looks right to me. Like, so you save that. His eye is very much based on like a parrot's eye. Like, and the beak, I wanted him to look a little bit like some kind of weird parrot monster, you know, and kind of blend like scales and feathers and beak and, you know, kind of lean into that. So.
Yeah, so you're pretty much focusing on that time period where like the dinosaurs would have more feathers to them instead of the whole Jurassic period.
Yeah, I wanted, well, you know, so much of the vibe of D versus M is as realistic as possible. Like I'm trying to do everything as like how it would be to be there. How would it look if you were really seeing this? And so when it comes to drawing the dinosaurs, like, you know, I went down the rabbit hole of paleo art and paleontology and really tried to get a feel for like what did it probably really look like. And of course nobody can say for sure, but I wanted it. My personal goal was, if a paleontologist looks at this comic, he's not going to say like, ugh, you know, like more trash. Like I want him to be like, oh, it doesn't look bad. Like that's
right.
It could look like that. So
yeah, well, it's awesome stuff, you know.
Yeah,
give me props.
But you know, I also feel like if you were to reanimate a dinosaur, it would be one that had feathers, because it would be close. It would, you know, even if it's by a few million years, it would be closer to what we could use now. When they would be in this stage. Yeah, because it'd probably be one of those things like it's the closest dinosaur that you could use that could adapt to like how the atmosphere is now, in a way, if you want to get like all scientific with that.
Yeah, I mean, and I wanted, you know, I loved the idea of making the Styracosaur even more exotic looking, like, you know, really make him kind of like just push it. But I mean, I just couldn't back it up because, you know, everything they have skin impressions of a lot of dinosaurs like these and stuff. And I was like, so I limited myself to his little tail frill, like his fan on this. But other than that, I was like, and a little bit of these like pin feathers around his eyes, but otherwise I had to be restrained. So. Yeah, well, this is such a dope book, man. Like, I know, I can't say it enough. Like you killed it. Like
just every panel, like we could sit here and analyze for hours on end, because it's not even like, yes, the artwork is fantastic, but it deserves it because you put the effort in. Like all these items, any item that you see is an item that you would find, and so that holds your eyes on the page, because now it's like, it's relatable, because now when somebody is telling a story where they're trying to recount details, it makes you look at the details of what they're talking about more, because you know it's important. You know what might be a hole later. You know what might reveal a secret later. So once you know that that's the beat, like you want to stay on the page, and you gave it a reason to stay on every page, because the artwork is fantastic. There's no filler. It's effort. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, you came across with like having just a bunch of squiggly lines for the smoke, but it came across so nicely done. And then even with the sound effect there, you have it kind of faded with the smoke, so it gives it more of that effect to it. So yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, just can't. And I love the facial expressions. I mean, that's probably the hardest thing to do, especially with aliens, is that since they don't have really eyes, you only have like to work with is the wrinkles of their forehead and just their mouth and stuff like that. Their
mouth and stuff. Well, and I really made the effort to make them all look like individuals too.
Oh yeah.
Copy and pasted alien faces. So like when you look at them, you'll see like, oh, this one's head shape's a little different, and this one always kind of frowns a little bit, and this one, I tried to make them like you could tell these are different individuals in the group.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. One of these guys does not. He looks like he knew he wanted to call out of work that day.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, this is why. This is why." I love it, man. Yeah, it's good stuff.
And the one I had to use for the thumbnail, I just really love this shot right here. I mean, just you have the action going on, and you could really tell the fear in the alien's eyes without any eyeballs, and just like drilling a hole and like angling the mouth at a right angle where you could see the fear. So I really like this page right here.
This page is when you say, okay, it doesn't matter that it's not a T-Rex. Like
exactly.
We're not ready for a T-Rex because we can't handle the vegetable dinosaur. So,
that's right.
But what do we do now?
As I do with most books, this is definitely one of those pages that I would like as a poster on my wall, just because it has like that awesome action sequence to it, where you could literally tell where the line of the action is coming from, and just, it speaks volumes. I like it.
I think that me and Ronnie have said that the most in this book, in just about every other book except for Uzumaki. So you're, it's a small crowd, but you're in rarefied air.
That's not bad company. So okay.
No, this is awesome. Like
this page. I mean, with 75, I was, with the exception of the hallucination sequence, I was pretty restrained. And because it was my first comic I'd ever done in my life, I kind of just like I
really
so I was trying to be a little conservative. With 97, I thought, well, I got to up my game for all of this. And so 97, you see first the first 2-page spread where the first reveal the aliens and the Marsbot. And then I wanted one. It's funny you said poster. I wanted one like this would be the poster. Like this would be the big, like, the big splashy, page. So I spent a lot of time, and I had a lot of fun doing this one, like really doing more detail than you can in individual panels. Really having fun with the cockpit and their expressions in there. And, that I really was, it's not often you can look at your work over and over again and still be happy with it. But I really like how the Styracosaurus face turned out in particular. Like, his beak and his mouth and his eyes, like, and he has that kind of dumb bull look to him. Like, I like how it looks. So.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. But man, could just say so much. I mean, just looking more at like the detail pages. I've seen that you had on your Instagram like actual like little figures of this. Is that how you got the reference for the dinosaurs?
Yeah, I have I got it right here. Let's see here. This guy did a lot of duty. Like, and he's not posable. You know what's funny? So I was looking at him a lot, and mine looks a little different. Like I changed some of the proportions, and some of this wasn't correct. Like this horn curves the wrong way based on what they were really like. And like there were a lot of things where it's like, well, that's not right. But this at least got me in the ballpark. So it was a lot of looking at this stuff with, you know, your pencil and kind of sketching like, all right, kind of like that and kind of like that. And like you kind of put together a pose. But it's laborious. As soon as I got the comic done and out, this came out. This posable, awesome figure. And I was dying because I was like, this would have made it so much easier. Like if I had this thing and could have used this as like an art doll. But whatever. I mean, it turned out fine, but yeah. Right.
Live and learn, man.
And I'm just going to say this because you made a book about aliens and dinosaurs, and you kind of have like his look in the 90s. You kind of look like the comic version of Steven Spielberg, you know?
With like, I can see that. Yeah.
Right.
I've gotten, you know, I've really gone down the hat rabbit hole because, like, I don't know if you can see COVID. I've not gotten a haircut in 8 months. And so it's just, and it's not cool long, it's just uncut long. So it's just like, it's just yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's just shaggy and bad. So like it's been hats all the time. So yeah, it is kind of like a Spielbergy, Ron Howardy thing going on.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, that's awesome that you, and with the reference, did you try to take a picture and put it into like the program with the digital robot so you could kind of like look at how it would be angled, or you just worked from scratch and tried to get the right view?
It depends panel to panel, but it could have been either one of those. Generally though, you know, as complicated as the dinosaur looks, a lot of what's hard about the dinosaur is the textures.
Yeah.
The basic shapes, like I was freehanding and you know, it just takes a second. The robot is the opposite problem. There's not a lot of texture going on because I'm imagining sort of like just kind of pure and white like an iPod or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But it has all this complexity in its shape. So like the robot takes forever to get the lines done. But then it's almost done. Then you're just adding some shadow. The dinosaur, you get like, you know, okay, its head's here and the horns are here and done. And then you're spending like hours like doing skin textures and stuff like that. So, but mostly when they're both in the same frame, it's just remembering scale. How big is the dinosaur compared to an alien compared to the robot? And figuring out where they are in space. And like, you know, what's my perspective and how big should this be? How long is this horn compared to an alien? You know, like trying to keep that again, consistent.
Yeah.
Like I said, it just drives me crazy when I see proportion shifts, not just in comics, but in movies. Like Attack of the Clones, there's a lot wrong with that movie. But in that arena scene where Anakin is facing off against that weird kind of horned bull thing, like that thing goes from being like bear size to dinosaur size to like, I mean, it's like it's constantly a different size depending on like what's going on. It drives me crazy. Like I hate that stuff. So like I'm spending a lot of time trying to figure out like, okay, well, how big would this be right here?
Yeah.
Right. So you try to make sure you have a idea of the actual space that you're working in, even in an outside environment.
Yes. And how far they are from each other.
Right. Exactly.
I try to really dial it in. And I even have, I don't have it printed, but I even made myself like a little scale chart that has like a man, a woman, a Deinonychus, an alien, a robot, a Styraxor, like all like in a line so I can see like where do they line up, you know, how tall are they next to each other? You know, so I can just always look at that and see like, are my soldiers too big? Are they too small? Like, what's that? You know,
man, it shows like all these things that you will never see in a comic book are things that, as the reader, we get to benefit from. Because I looked at this like this one in particular, I'm like,
get the book here.
This is a television
Our
show.
books,
like,
I should say books. Get the books here.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is ripe for Amazon Prime, or like one, like it's just, you can feel the motion in it because everything feels tangible. Like this is a location. Like the one panel, like down a few, and I hope I'm not getting too far ahead of where you guys wanted to be, but it's like down a few.
No,
it's like this is the first time where you've like muted the background a little bit to where it's not that stark dark black, but it just shows how far in the distance these mountains are.
Yeah,
and how big this dead dinosaur is. It's just
that was
little stuff like that that just makes it. It's bananas. Like that's my favorite word, but it is.
Yeah. The only gray I use in this one is for like the distant cliff face, and I had not intended to do that, but as I started drawing the battle scene in the canyon, I just realized it was too visually difficult to separate foreground from background if I did the background in black.
Right.
But I needed it there because I needed to show that they were sort of confined. Like I think you needed that sense of like you're in it's not just a flat plane, like you're in this little canyon. So that was the one I struggled with it, but I was like, no, I'm going to have to do some of the distant backgrounds like in gray, just so people can kind of understand what they're looking at.
It's so funny that you say when you brought up Attack of the Clones, because I did get a Coliseum vibe from, it's like you have the aliens, then you have the military, then you have the dinosaurs, and it's like now they're all clashing because the dinosaurs aren't really on anybody's side.
No.
Yeah.
No, and I thought it was, I enjoyed, and this was something when I was going through editing and it's like, can I make this comic any shorter? I debated, like, do I need the Styracosaur going after the soldiers? And I just couldn't give it up. I was like, no, I think you need that. I think you need to see that it's just a little wild. Like it doesn't know, it's not Dino Riders, man. Like it's not even like Jurassic World where it's like
Dino Riders is awesome though. That was an awesome cartoon.
It was a cool cartoon, but I need to show like that's not what I'm doing. Like I'm trying to make this is more like if you had a grizzly bear, and you're just letting it loose. Like it's not trained. It doesn't know. Like it's just mean. It's just mean and big. So
shout out to my little brother. Happy birthday, bro. So
happy birthday. What's your brother's name?
Ricky. But happy in birthday, the chats is Scurvy Night. So but thank you all for stopping by and checking out the channel as always.
Yeah, y'all. This book is nuts. Like you got to get it. I knew like once I started reading it, it was like Gary was decent enough to let us get review copies, but I'm like, man, this has to be in my presence. Like I have to be able to grab this when I'm doing something else and just like fan through it every once in a while because it's just one of those books that I will always go back to. And yes, the art is there, but the story, guys, like the art is there because it's unique and it's fun to talk about it because there is so much attention in it. Man, I'm here for it. I'm here for the story.
It's a great story. It has a lot of nostalgic feel to it, and it's definitely one of those books. Like it's not like a book that's almost similar to another one. It's its own thing, and that's really the hard thing to do as a writer sometimes is to create your own story when so many stories have been written already out there. So really good job on that. And for you saying like 1975 was your first comic, but yet you put so much detail in there, it's like you could never tell that was your first comic because you nurtured that and took care of it with so much detail.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it becomes a little bit of an obsession, but I feel like if you're going to do it, you need to just leave it all in the field, man. Like, you can't, I mean, I don't know. I think you know, there are some creators I think that kind of hold themselves back a little bit because they're, I don't know.
They don't want to draw feet. No.
Well, they don't want to draw hands. They don't want to draw feet. Yeah, but they're not confident. Like whatever it is, you know, or it's because it's like I don't know. Like I mean, it's like if you're gonna put this out there, you might as well just push. You might as well just really push yourself and.
But you will always be proud of what you made because
you want to at least. I would much rather have an interesting, ambitious failure than like, hey, you pipe down. Like an interesting, ambitious failure than like a very safe, you know, boring,
right?
Or like okay comic. You know, I mean, I would rather just kind of like let's just push and see what happens.
Right.
I mean, you're an indie comic creator. I mean, we dream about a lot of people reading our stuff. And if you're going to make something, especially if you're an indie creator, why not make something that's big and bold, but in, you know, as much as you think you could get done without it never getting done in the first place?
What's the point of being an indie if you're not going to just do something a little unconventional and go crazy? Like, I mean, that's the, like, if you think you're going to tell like some really exciting, innovative, you know, genre pushing story at Marvel and DC, I hate to break it to you guys, but like, that's not, I mean, I shouldn't, I don't know, there's probably exceptions, but it's like, I think if you're going to be an indie, if you are an indie, you should take advantage of all the perks of being an indie. And one of the perks is like, I'm just going to tell the story I want to tell. Like, you know, even if it's weird, even if it's different, even if people aren't going to get it, that's the one I'm going to do. And if I can pour way much time into this, then, you know, normal, like if I was working for somebody, then like I should leverage that, you know, I don't know, you should think of like, well, what are the advantages?
Yeah, will the end product be worth the time that you put in in research? And it is here.
I mean, if you're going to give up, I mean, like I said, it's about a page a week just to draw it, and that's not even counting writing.
Yeah.
So like this was a 59-page comic. That's 59 weeks. If I'm going to burn 59 weeks on something, I'm going to believe in it. Like, you know, and it needs to be a thing where even if 4 people ever read this thing, I feel good about it. Like I feel like I did what I wanted to do.
Awesome. That's the attitude to have.
Yep.
And I love this panel here because literally you see one of the aliens missing his jaw. And it's just it's one of those moments. It's like, yeah, take that, motherfucker. You know,
I like. First of all, it's kind of nice because you've seen them do horrible things.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's kind of nice. And
they're cold.
And you can probably see it a little bit in 75 too. I'm a fan of kind of horrific injuries. Like I kind of love, like not even
it's a horror comic. You have to.
You got to, and like I think there's something just about that, like. And the research for that, talk about horrific. I was looking, trying to find reference images for people who had maybe lost their jaw. And there was this horrible story about a girl. She was in this freak horse riding accident. She was like 15. If you Google, you could probably find it. And somehow, it like falling off the horse, she caught her jaw on something and basically detached it.
Oh my
and
God.
they were able to kind of put her all back together, but they took a picture of her in the ER before they did that. And that was heavily like reference, you know, like I was like, well, what would that look like? It would look a lot like that. I mean, it was gnarly looking, but I think those are the kind of things that are more horrifying than just like a gunshot wound, you know, like, you know, or like like you come up with something that maybe you haven't seen before. And
yeah, because so many people are just used to seeing gunshot wounds. And that's the beauty of horror comics is that you could bring things that people never thought of that's only like in their dreams pretty much to life on the page here. That's why people like to go to haunted houses or watch horror movies because like the fact of just seeing stuff that they could only see in their minds come to life in like special effects or stuff like this. So
or awaken to them to like a possible. I mean, it's kind of creepy, but awaken yourself to a possibility of something that could happen to you. Like that is, I mean, that can really chill someone. Like, and that's why I kind of liked the finger injury on the soldier in the first part you guys did, because it's not going to kill him. He's going to be fine. but it would be really psychologically horrifying to like see like just
to be fighting aliens and dinosaurs and have lost a finger, but you are in no position to stop fighting. Like you can't stop and take care of your finger.
That's not going to get fixed. Like all you can do is sort of hold on to it and do your job. Yeah, and like, and I thought like there's something, and I like to sprinkle that stuff throughout to try and ground the reader because I'm introducing a lot of like way out there concepts. So every once in a while, it's like, oh, and now here's someone with their finger getting basically torn off. Like that kind of brings you back to like, you know, real. What would that be like? How would that feel? What would it be like to see these things? Like you're kind of spacing out like dinosaur and then finger injury and then robots and like losing your jaw. Like, you know.
Well, you know, when you go from seeing someone get struck by lightning through and, you know, get blown apart inside of a trailer, which is one of my favorite journeys, like from the outside of that trailer all the way through until you find out what's on the other side of that hole.
I love that you noticed that hole, by the way, because I think a lot of people don't even read that. They see the
I didn't even see the UFO at first. I saw the hole. What made that hole in there? Like that's great. So it's just that, but no, it's just
that's my consistency OCD showing again. Because to me, it's like I knew in the scene, like, okay, well, they shot the girl with the ray gun. It punctured the wall. Where are they in the house? You should be able to see that outside. Like, you know, so it's like I got to put that there, you know, like and it's like, well, you, as far as I know, you're the only one that noticed. Like, oh, there's a hole in the wall. But like, I just thought like that should be there. Like, you should be able to see that, you know.
Yeah, I guess knowing that you have to go in the house, like I would pay more attention to that than I would anything that was outside, because whatever either made that hole looks like it came from inside out. So where am I going in this house to not have one of these holes inside of me, you know? And the house was tight.
Well, yeah,
and it
pretty
was
much.
Like,
I mean, the house
the whole way through.
Yeah, it was a little bitty. It was like every house I saw growing up in like, I mean, I grew up in the Phoenix area. It's like every little house on the outskirts, you know, like it just, I mean, I know that house inside and out.
That's exactly what me and Ronnie said, like in two different areas, but we still said, you know, I was like, I've seen a house 1,000 times in Gastonia, North Carolina, because I've seen those houses with that lattice work. Yeah,
off the ground. There's always like a dead cat or something under there. Like, exactly. Like I mean, we all know that house, and it also places you. It's like, this isn't the fancy part of town, guys. Like this is, you know, like this is out. This is far. This is, you know, it's pretty simple. It's like it's probably a rust-colored shag carpet. Like, I mean, you know, it's like it's just a place.
Probably got some stains on the floor.
There's one room with wood paneling.
Yes.
You know, there's the old wooden ceiling fan that's barely owned.
And when you're running that evap, when you're running the evap cooler, the doors get stuck because they swell up. Like, I mean, that's this place. That's the place. Yeah.
That's great. But hold on. So I'm gonna flash forward a little bit. In this story, because this is like a true sci-fi book, but it's a true horror book, because this is a horrible experience to go through. But the real horror in this story is in that interrogation room.
Right.
There's no question. Like, it has all the tension that you could ever want. And you understand why Jennifer is so standoffish at first, but you see her let her guard down. Like every time she takes a drag off the cigarette, this lady is becoming more and more of her friend. And they're her cigarettes. It's like everything means something. And it's just like, relax, until I don't really want to say much more, because
but it's great storytelling.
This is my shit, man.
There's something symbolic there. You know, it's funny just the way you put that. There is something symbolic, and like the only comfort she's getting out of this is from her own cigarettes. Like it's all self-generated. Like it's kind of illusionary, because you know the attorney character gives her but it's her cigarettes. Like, you're giving me my thing. you know, like, yeah, it's kind of, but she kind of enjoys the benefit of that. Yeah.
Yep.
And for this being like your first comics, but you were such a fan of like the genre with the horror and sci-fi, most people were like, okay, you can't have so much dialogue in one panel, you know, but the thing is that sometimes dialogue could be a breaker and could be a great storyteller. I mean, you got to really think about what you're going to put in that bubble before you write it, because if you're just adding a bunch of stuff that doesn't really give like tension or anything to the story, then you are wasting the panel. But from like what Jason's saying, just reading like the tension on how she's like becoming more and more of a friend by the conversation they're having, it's like really great work. So it showed that besides taking the time to draw it, you took the time to write it as well. Because,
was a considerable process. This was a tough script to write compared to 75. 75, I feel like I finished the script beginning to end in probably about a month. It wasn't too bad. This one was several months. Like, and to me, when I first thought of the story, it didn't seem very complicated, but as I started writing it, I realized like, this is a very complicated story. Like, not only do I basically have to write a script of what happens in that room, in the interrogation room. I have to figure out what happens in the canyon, and I got to figure out how they're weaving in and out of each other. Like, at what part is she narrating? At what part, what am I showing? And even though it's like kind of snapshotty memories of the canyon, I need to know exactly what happened and why to figure out which snapshots I'm going to pull out, you know, to show. I mean, and it is, you know, I felt like it was a little risky, but again, perks of being an indie, like just the story itself, it's like the bulk of the story is two women in a room talking, you know, that's a weird pitch for a comic book. If you're an indie, you can get away with that. Like, I don't know, like in publishing that might be harder, but I needed to get that exactly right. And it needed to be, and I'm happy that you said it, it needed to be where, while the middle stuff is great and comic booky and exciting and scary and gross and fun, it has to also be overshadowed by the human drama that you're going to get outside of there. And that's a lot of weight that Jenny and Cynthia have to carry. Like they've got to come through for me. And that's all on the writing. Like, not all, it's mostly on the writing, and it's also on having phenomenal reference models of, like, you know, people who can kind of emote, and you get you can start to capture like what's going on in their heads and their emotions and their faces and everything. But
gotcha. So you actually had friends or people to do the references?
I did. I got Jenny is played by an artist friend of mine, Laura Jacobson, who's just a phenomenal artist, and she proofread the script for me. Partly because I wanted to get her thoughts, but partly because I wanted to pitch, like, would you be able to do some reference stand-in for Jenny? Right. And I was very fortunate that she was very into it. She loved the script and she loved the character of Jenny, and she really brought a lot to it. That's the fun thing of doing, like, if you're shooting reference models, sometimes they'll like do something that's not what you expected, not what you asked for, but you're like, oh, that's even better. You know, that's an even better thing I can work with. So I took a gazillion pictures of her. And then Cynthia was another friend of mine, Molly Abel, who she was also great, where like, it's like, I felt like she can convey, like I needed to sort of, the words that kept coming to me was like sort of an owlish intelligence, like someone who seemed like very smart and very thoughtful and very calm. And I felt like she has the right, like, look, you know, the right eyes for that. And she also, her mom had been a prosecutor. So she kind of knew, like, I was like, I need you to channel like kind of worn out, bureaucratic government employee, you know, who's kind of just like, they do their job, they believe in it, but boy, they're tired. Like, I need kind of that. I need to sort of, you know, and she knew exactly what I was trying to get. So I took a gazillion pictures of her making different faces and holding like imaginary things. And, you know, like, so then you have hundreds of photos that you start going through when you're drawing, just as like, I need a face that looks a little like this, or I need an expression that looks a little like that. But
it's all it's all there in this story. It's the comforts, the creature comforts, the head game got me. Like, because I write a lot of cult horror. Like a lot of my horror comes from, you know, being raised in a cult. Right. And Cynthia, she has that energy of, why do you care about me so much for, I've given you all the information I can give you. Like, why are we still here talking? And if you look at these pages, like, Cynthia carries the dialogue. Like, you know, it's like Jennifer feels like she's in control because she's recounting her story, but it's like Cynthia's smooth. She
knows exactly what she's trying to do.
She rode the way. It was like she was whitewater rafting, you know. She knew when to paddle, she knew when to coast. And it was
and you can,
that's what she does.
When you've read it to the beginning and you know, like, the twist, you go back, you can see her moves. Like you can see her reacting to what Jenny is doing and like pivoting a little bit and like, you know, readjusting a little bit. Like I wanted her to seem like she knows her job and she is smart. Like she knows exactly what she needs out of this. But I also, just to add some nuance, I wanted to also just hint at a little bit of conflictedness. Like she doesn't love doing this, but it's her job. You know? Her job.
Yep. No, it's such a good story. Like, y'all, again, I'm not gonna say too much more because it's there's justice in this story. Like you finished it. A1. Like it was. It was good,
and here you see not just the aliens, but you see the dinosaurs like dying here, like the whole laser blast with the whole, you know, alien, and the velociraptor type of creature literally gets his head blown in half from the mouth. I mean, really cool shot there and great angle. Just awesome stuff. Can't say it enough. And then you still have the one missing the mouth where his eyes, one is drawn bigger and the other one's smaller. You could tell the expression and just the emotion in his face there, especially right here when literally like the claws coming up to his eye. Just, you know, he's like, oh crap. It didn't work.
Bad day. Bad day gone worse.
Day at the office.
Right.
That was no good. No good for you.
Yep. He's like, I was gonna ask to leave early today. You know, and it's just like now it's all over. But well, so I feel like 59 weeks is a really nice little clip for what your final product was. Like,
I have no frame of reference. To me, it felt long. Like, I mean,
I imagine it would, but
maybe I don't know. I don't know. I'm always curious how fast other people go. Like, I know some people do, like, of course they're doing it full time. Like, I have a day job. So like I'm pretty much limited to nights and weekends. Like I can't, you know, I think when I hear other people, sometimes I hear some people say that they're doing like a page a day. But I think that's their job. And they certainly aren't doing something as kind of fiddly detailed complicated as I am. Like I you know, I mean, if I had picked a different style, maybe, you know, but there's no way I could do.
Yes, you should. You should.
Do it, man. Do it.
Just do it.
Yeah, just go do it. It's well worth it. Get the 2-pack. Yeah. 2-pack for sure.
Yeah,
not 2-pack Shakur.
Yeah, you save some money
for sure. Yeah.
And when you did this, did you do a Kickstarter with it, or how did you approach? Like, no,
I do.
You just did it.
I just did it all, and you just save your pennies. Printing isn't that bad. Like, and I'm not. I mean, again, looking at the bright side of indie, I don't sell a gazillion copies, so like I can pretty much order a print order. You know, like I can if it ever, you know, hey, it'd be a great problem to have. But if it ever got to the point where I was selling like hundreds of books, you know, like a month or so, then it's like, oh yeah, I probably want to kickstart to get that going. because that's a lot. I've thought about doing a Kickstarter just to have that experience. I never have, but it would probably be to do like a special edition or like a bundle, like a bound book that has both 75 and 97 in it. You know, something like that. Like I would try to come up with like, well, what's something kind of an oddball like side thing. But like the next one I do, which is going to be D versus M 1979, that it's going to be the same as always. I'm going to just sit and draw, and then I'll save up some money and put in a print order and do it myself. Like
And when do you think that next book's going to be out?
Hard to say. I'm still kind of figuring out my script. It's funny. So if you go to my YouTube channel, I have a whole series of videos on the making of both my comics. So I have a whole series of videos on making a 75, whole series of videos on 97. 97 is a little funny because there's me saying like, okay, I'm going to start writing the script and I think I'll be done by, you know, like in 4 weeks, I think I'll have a good rough draft. And you just start seeing the dates roll by of like me blowing my deadlines because it was just, I just had a bad sense of how hard it was going to be.
Yeah.
That in mind, that I might totally blow these dates. I'm thinking I'll probably have a script done and I'll be thumbnailing and maybe even starting to draw in this year. And it would be released sometime next year. That's like kind of my rough feeling right now. So like,
are you leaping forward? Are you leaping forward in years with your next book?
We're going back for this one. So the next one will be 79.
Okay.
And that will be focused. So if the first one, you can think of the first one as kind of Men in Black focused.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The second one is kind of civilian focused, like just an eyewitness, a bystander.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that'll be cool.
This next one that I'm working on is going to be very scientist focused. So it's going to be a story about someone early in the process of trying to figure out the dinosaur problem. So like in the kind of that person's story. The next one after that is going to be 2001, and that one's going to be soldier focused. And that's going to be the one that's like, it's going to be, not only is it going to be a very action-y one, but I think it's the one that I'm setting out. You guys, I hope, will be especially excited. I'm setting out to be like the real horror one. Like I want that one to be just scary, 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 freaky. Like that's how I'm sort of picturing it in my head. So those are the next two. I'm cool. There'll be a couple more after that, but I'm just focused on the next two. So,
and besides the story writing and the artwork, me and Jason both love that you actually decide to put newspaper articles and classified files in there to just give it more of like that beautiful touch to the storyline. It's like, okay, you know, this, you know, you read something like that. It's like, okay, you got people talking, no, I seen some crazy shit there. This is a lie. And we got to figure out what the truth is, man. You know, I could just really see people in the 70s like doing that. Said, you know, I saw a flying saucer. I don't believe what that newspaper said, you know?
Right. No, I think that's such, you know, it's to me, especially growing up, reading all the crazy, you know, UFO conspiracy stories and all that. That was some of my favorite stuff, was looking at these like alleged leaked documents with all the redactions. And I don't know about you, Jason, but like I know my big thing, like I would just stare at them and just see, like, can you tell it all what's under that redaction? Sometimes like a little bit of a letter would poke out and you're like, that says, I just thought,
and then I'll be like, okay, this name has this letter in the same spot. So I wonder what they said. Oh, maybe this is the same guy that was down here.
Exactly. That's part of the fun. Part of the fun is looking and trying
to. It really is. Yeah.
So like all the D versus M comics will always, first they'll always start with an introduction that's sort of stage setting. Then it will always start with a redacted document that fades in the story. Like the idea is always like you're reading this. I'm illustrating this classified document I was given. So like it's starting with that and it's fading in, and it will always close with like what's, you know, is ostensibly a Man in Black planted fake cover story in the paper. Like something to explain away what happened, something to explain away the deaths, something to explain away the fire, like whatever the thing was. So I just feel like that's going to be an important, like this is always going to be the framework. We're going to tell a very crazy sci-fi horror human story in between, but it's always going to be classified document and then fake news. Like that'll always,
that's pretty much
what I love the most about 1975 is the immediate pull you into these old classified document books, but the stark black and white felt like it was your imagination, like filling in this type print with the story of George and Reuben, like go like on an episode of Cops going into this house that was under alien attack. Like it was these two books are like, it's just my kind of books, man.
And I love that.
I can't say it enough.
And I love the fact that you actually try to draw the figures and have the hairstyles, or like have like little like small artifacts or something like that. Like with the Count Chocula box, it's designed like you would see like in the 1975 logo instead of the one that you would see in the 90s. It's like really great detail. You know, you really gotta, if you're gonna tell a time period piece, you gotta do the homework, and you have to. I mean, if you're not gonna have like the dialogue, at least try to have like the clothing and like the settings all be from that time period. So
for every comic I do, I have a private Pinterest board where it's all just deep dive, like especially for 75, it was like men's suits in the 70s, men's suits in the 60s. Like, I mean, and obviously the cars, the references to the cars. Hey, squad. There you go.
They're all over.
Clothing and like really, like again, it's like, to me, it's that attention to detail is just important to me, where it's like, like 75 is a good example. What kind of guns would the two guys carry? You know, and like, what kind of suits would they wear? And I liked that the younger guy had a very kind of 70s, what would have been a then fashionable, like kind of with the big lapels and the fat tie. And like, I mean, he looked like you could tell he bought this suit in the past couple of years. Where the older man in black, he's more like kind of Hoover era. Like that suit is probably 10 years old. Like, you know, and he like, why would he be buying a new suit? And what gun? He has a simple 38 revolver. He doesn't need anything fancy. He doesn't need anything special. Where like the younger guy has some kind of an auto. Like, you know, just thinking about like, what would they be like?
For sure.
What would they wear? What are their backgrounds?
And more about you did the comic and everything. You did it yourself. You didn't do a Kickstarter. Have you done cons or anything like that?
I have done some conventions.
Gotcha.
My debut was locally here in Phoenix. There was the Phoenix Dino Con. It was a dinosaur and kaiju theme. Like, that's where Dinosaurs versus Marsbots got its start. So like I was like doing a little bit there. And then I've done the Phoenix Comic Con. It's gone through a bunch of different incarnations. It has a bunch of names. But to me, it's just Phoenix Comic Con. I've done that, gosh, 3 or 4 times. I don't even remember how many times now. But like, when we were doing cons in pre-play times, like, I would show up at the Phoenix Con and I would sell whatever my latest comic was. So
that's awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to get mine. I'm very excited. Like, just such a good job, man. Such a good.
Digital is fun, but like it's you know, it's a different experience to have it print in your hands.
It was definitely a book that I wanted to hold. Like, it just to sit down like fully comfortably without, you know, a backlit tablet, you know, just sit down and read it. Like, this is that kind of book. So well, and I spend a lot of time, if you watch my videos, you know, I spend a lot of time thinking about page turns and like the logic of like, what are you seeing on each page and where and when. So like, you know, that's another thing. If you have the physical book, you kind of get more of the, like, my idea of how it should be paced. But I've learned a lot about that with like just doing these mini comics is like, terminating a story quicker than you're used to, but holding on to it enough to like make somebody want to keep turning these little tiny pages. And so
for sure.
It counts. Like those little things count, because there's a lot of good books that have fantastic art that just sit forever. There's nothing really that tethers you to them. And this book hits on both points. Like it looks good and it reads as good as it looks. So
yeah, I mean, let me see if I could try to make it bigger. But for the audience out there, I mean, you just see a bunch of dialogue here, but there's parts where Gary literally has some of the words in bold because he's trying to show the action that's coming across with those words that are bold, and trying to make them be like the key parts of that conversation on what he's trying to get across. That's like basically the main part of the story. That's at least what I got from it.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
there's definitely.
Sorry, I was going to agree with Ronnie.
Oh no, yeah. There's definitely a little bit of, you know, there's a lot of intentionality in like what you're bolding and how you break up lines and stuff like that. Yeah, you gotta. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, what do you need the person to read? But then also you're trying to do some inflection. You know, like I
was going to say, yeah, this lady's tense.
Yeah, and you want to. You know, I think of another one of the things that I try to bring to the D vs. M comics is like I like performance. I like seeing actors work. I like seeing, you know, like I like movies, I like TV, and like you're very limited with that with static panels. So it's like I try to spend a lot of time on facial expressions, but also like trying to give you a feel of like what words, like how are they saying it. How are they, is it coming out fast or slow? Like, are they really hitting this syllable hard? Like, you know, I'm trying to help you hear it the way I'm hearing it in my head. But.
I mean, just here, I mean, where you decide to like break up this panel, like instead of just showing like their faces, you're having the cigarette opening up, you have the film handing. It's a really nice sequence on trying to have the dialogue there, but show action at the same time. Because when you have like just two people in a room talking, you really brought it to the spectrum. Like, okay, I can make this entertaining, even though they're not doing anything pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. You start to try and just for not just for the reader, for yourself, when you're drawing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, it's like I gotta come up with something to make this interesting just for me. Like just like I can't draw Jenny one more time just sitting and talking. Like how can I sex this up? Like what can I do?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like so yeah, that gets you creative where it's like, well, how can I frame this? You know, and make it look a little different.
Right. So something else I noticed, and this is kind of one of the last things I wanted to go too far backwards for. In 1975, how crisp everything was until we got to the deranged guy.
Yeah.
And it showed in the artwork, like his face was a little bit more curvy. Yeah. And it was like just these little off lines that like, it was the first glimpse you saw of that that acid trip world.
Yeah,
after the gas, you know, because he was under the influence of it, but we didn't necessarily know that completely at that point.
Yeah, he's a mess, and therefore like he's a little messy. Like he's just I didn't want to push it too far, but I wanted to be just enough where it's like something's not right. Like,
it was noticeable, yeah,
for sure.
You know, he had the eyes, like he had the eyes of somebody who had, you know, handed over all their 6s and 7s. You know?
with this panel,
a glimpse of something very like otherworldly. Like when you see his eyes, you can tell like he's not just drunk. Like something.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's broken.
Yeah, something's wrong. Something.
Yeah.
You could definitely tell that.
Yeah, just. That's what you get out of these books, guys. Like,
for sure,
I got both for $18, and it didn't sting for what you're getting. Like the value's there. Like every page is worth it. It's a clinic. Like it's something to look at when you want to draw something or when you want to write something. It's a very clear textbook example of like solid storytelling. Like,
for sure.
Thank you.
And I only say prematurely because I did it before we finished our whole review. I gave this a 10 out of 10 last week, like for both of them, because it really is that good for me. And I had no intentions of doing any more 10s, but this one earned it as much as the first one earned it. So
I agree. A solid 10 across the board, because it's one of those things. It's hard to pretty much have a story that's a continuation, especially when you're like changing time periods.
Yeah.
Especially
this
if you're like
benchmark.
a beginner. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, this is a benchmark book.
I was really, I had a lot of anxiety about this one for all sorts of reasons, but first and foremost, I always imagined D versus M as an anthology series.
Yeah.
And I knew there was a potential risk in that anyone who liked 75, they might have been disappointed in 97 because they wanted lots more stories about men in black with scary aliens and houses. You know what I mean? Like, you see that one and you're like, oh, this is going to be the whole series. I want more of this.
Yeah, no, they're different books.
They're different, but totally different stories, different characters. It's like different parts of the same universe and like different angles and different times. But you don't know, like, are people going to go, are they going to stay with me? Like, are they going to say like, well, no, I liked the Man in Black stuff, so I'm out,
Yeah.
But again, like, benefit of being in indie, it's like, this is always what I pictured. Like, I pictured doing this. So like, hopefully you guys will stay with me. But
I mean, I don't know how old you are, Gary, but I remember as a kid having like, the whole little like go to the dollar store and buy like soldiers and stuff like that and have like the dollar store dinosaurs. And pretty much you made a book on what a lot of us kids from the 80s and 90s used to do. It's like I'm gonna make a book about dinosaurs versus aliens.
Yeah.
The one fight that no one asked for, but people deserved.
Everybody wanted, and everybody's acted in their head. Yeah, dinosaurs versus aliens, and then G.I. Joe shows up. Like, that's kind of, it's a little,
Yeah. It's like people didn't want, it's like G.I. Joe and Transformers, please give me more. And this is pretty much what you did with the aliens and the dinosaurs. So
And it was, and again, like, perks of being an indie, because it's like, so not only do I have that, which is this sort of fun, like, I mean, like, oh, it's like G.I. Joe and Robot. It's like Mars Attacks with G.I. Joe and Dinosaur and Jurassic Park. Like, it's all that. But then around it, let's tell a story about, like, human drama and like, an issue, like, we'll touch on issues like addiction. We'll touch on issues like being a woman. Like let's kind of like what is going on in this book? Like, there's a lot of weird directions.
And I know with you, with your many books, you're probably going to at some point explain how these dinosaurs came to be. As like, did they find like, DNA, or were there like the center of the earth? Like, there's possibilities that you.
Well, that's why I'll just say this. That's why the next one, 1979, is scientist focused.
Okay.
So, like, I figured this is as far as I can go without people starting to say like, okay, but seriously, why are there dinosaurs? So it's like, all right, so maybe the next one. Like,
well, aliens are digestible. Yeah. Okay. We expect aliens, but no.
But now if you're throwing dinosaurs in, it's like, wait, what's going on? And there are a lot of, I like that people will speculate a little bit. It's like, maybe there was like a rip in time, or maybe the aliens brought the dinosaurs, or maybe there's like, like, what's going on? But I figured, like, that's fun to speculate, but there is a kind of a logic in the way I've ordered them, like how I'm releasing them, where one, even though they're not chronological, they do sort of lead to the next. Like, whatever questions you might have from the first one should go to the next, and
I see.
It should carry you through. Like, you'll follow a thread all the way through. But,
well, you've got me. I'll follow you to 79.
All right. I was going to say, I love that you actually added detail to the paper, because as a reader, you want to focus on and see exactly what she's trying to sign and agree to.
That's the same paper from the end.
It's the same one from the end.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
it's all together.
So writing the affidavit that you see at the end with the cigarette burn on it, like, from her stubbing out her cigarette, Like that, I did. It was one of the last things I did. So for weeks, that page where she's like sliding the affidavit to her was just a blank square on that page because I wanted it to match. So I had to go and write the affidavit. First, I had to, again, Google research. I had to figure out how do you write an affidavit? Like, what does an affidavit look like? And so you write this.
It's still the same on that picture on the panel now too. Like,
and then you screen cap it and map it into this thing you drew like 2 months ago or whatever it was to make it consistent.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's like it's trying to get, again, that's like the way it's like I want it all to like be kind of solid, like no weird plot holes, no, you know. And I know as a kid I would have stared at that and like tried to read it. So that's why like it'll be fun to have this in the appendix. So people
that's where the secrets are, right? Exactly. You know?
Exactly.
No, you hit all your marks, and it showed that it mattered. It mattered to you more than it mattered to anybody else, and I think that's where all the good stuff is like when we stop catering to and we just start to say, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write what I want to write, and somebody will be interested in it because there's things that show through more than subject matter if it counts to somebody.
You hope that's the hope. You hope that, and that's the weird kind of, I don't know, the weird paradox of this. You're writing something that's, I think if you're being really true to yourself as a creative, you're trying to tell a story that's very personal and that you're very passionate about, and it's very individual. Like you're making choices like, I think this is the right choice. I think this is the right choice. I think this is how it should go. Like it's all me, me, me. In the hopes that and this is what's weird and kind of magical about it. If you're so true to yourself, if you're true enough to yourself, someone else will get it, which doesn't make sense. But I think if you start writing for what you think an audience wants, it's not gonna, it's the opposite. Like no one's gonna care. It's gonna be too weird. Yeah. But you got to believe in it. You got to be passionate about it. You got to feel like you've got something here, you know,
If you woke up and you had 10 acres of land outside that you had to farm and you had a bag of seeds, you would not throw 10 seeds in this far corner and 10 seeds over here. You would start close to your door and make one tight patch grow, and then you would build from there. And that's what you do. Like when you stay true to what you want to write, you build right outside your door, but it counts. So you'll take root better, and you'll believe in what you're creating more.
Exactly.
And then it gets bigger, and it doesn't feel like this feels huge to me. Like your story feels like it would be so much to tackle, but in your effort to do it one page at a time, you concentrated on your details on that page. You concentrated on what you wanted to do, and then you were out, and then it was on to the next.
On to the next.
And it shows like you ate the elephant properly, and
and
you know, it counts. Yeah.
And I definitely love like the conversation. Like you guys have to buy the book to really dive into it. But at this point, you know, the attorney is pretty much telling her, like, you know, try to say that.
Ronnie, I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop you right there. I'm not. I can't let you do that. Oh no!
You just dive in front of. It's like a Secret Service agent diving in front of the president. No.
Yeah, no, don't do that, Ronnie. Like, let them get this book, dog, because that was strong, man.
We could do like a spoilers from here on out alert or something if you want to get into it.
Yeah. If you guys, man, like
it's up to you. It's your guys' show, but.
No, it's your book.
I'm up for like as long as we like let everyone know, like, look, if you're gonna read it, if you don't want spoilers, now like we could say like at this point you want to tune out, but
All right. Well, I don't really see that anybody said anything in the chat.
But yeah.
All right, we're doing it, guys. Okay. I gotta talk to Gary about this while we're all here for a second.
Spoilers. All right, go.
All right.
Go ahead.
This ending,
yeah,
is horrible in the best possible way.
Isn't it?
It really, really is.
Yeah, it is.
Like, she has to sign over this. She's gotten played into handing over these negatives by somebody who was not even an attorney.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And now she has to drink her way out of this room when she's an alcoholic.
No good options. Like,
she can't win.
She can't win. Well, and this is where I think like it becomes different. And I do see Jenny as heroic in a way.
Yes.
Like, I like that she's savvy enough to see, like, I'm being kind of railroaded here, and I'm not going to play. Like, I'm not going to make this easy for you. I'm not going to let you let yourself off the hook. I'm going to make this hard for you to do what you're trying to do. Like, and I'm going to just be stubborn, and I'm not going to drink this, and I'm not going to sign this. Your move. What are you going to do now? You know, like, I want to.
She didn't sign it.
She didn't sign it. Yeah, when you look at the appendix, like, she never signed it. You know, like, her signature was stubbing the cigarette out on the signature lines. Like, that was such an FU. And like, I kind of like, that is sort of like, that is a flex. Like, that is like, and that's why you kind of like her. But that's why when you see, like, when I post about 97, I use the hashtag, like, where's Jenny? Like, you know, like, the idea is like, I don't know. She's just, no one ever saw her again.
Right.
You know? So is she sitting in a Guantanamo? Is she dead?
Right. Yeah.
Is she like where, like, what happened? You know? But
play ball or you can't leave.
Right. And and to leave, like, not only do you have to sign this thing, you basically have to humiliate and ruin yourself in the eyes of your family. You know?
Yes.
You have to go back on the promise you made. So, like, is your life worth that? You know? And
for sure,
Cynthia is betting that it is. You know? And Jenny is literally like, you bet wrong, bitch. Like, you're like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not like that. I made a decision years ago that, like, I'm done screwing up my own life. So I guess we're going to just sit here and wait, you know, until you figure out another. Right. And so while she's kind of heroic, and she's also kind of a martyr, you know, like, there's something, it's very tragic. And I have to admit, like, I got into this story enough and into Jenny enough where, like, when I finished this and read it for the first time, like, I realized, like, this is heartbreaking. Like,
it really is.
And especially seeing her on the canyon taking pictures, like, in this happier time in her normal clothes, pre-black eye, like, living her life. Like, there's something so sad about that, knowing where this is going, you know, like, knowing that, like, this is the last happy moment. That,
but it definitely has, like, that Men in Black feel where, like, you have these secret agents, they know that you've seen something, and it's like you either, like, become like the town drunk, or you're not going to see your family ever again because you want to keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Jenny signs it. Jenny drinks this whiskey. She loses everything outside those walls.
Right.
She has no reason to not stop drinking. And she's telling this story about aliens and soldiers and dinosaurs. And it sounds so ridiculous that it would never have enough traction for anybody to ever listen to her.
Yeah.
She's a crazy drunk lady.
Right. Exactly. It sounds ridiculous. Right.
It was like handing her a hand grenade, like with the pin pulled, and saying, you can never let this go. Yeah. Because whatever happens, it's over for you.
And at this point, you literally had the audience like, okay, who's really the bad guy here? The MIB or the aliens? Because you really don't know, because you thought that the MIB were the good guys from, like, the first book, but at the end of this one, it's like, okay, these people are ruthless. And who's to say that the aliens are only attacking because of what the humans did? So,
I mean, yes. I really appreciate that. Yeah, you sussed all that out. I thought that's also why I thought 97 is going to be a good follow-up for 75, because by the end of 75, you see the Men in Black as, like, they're the heroes. Like they kind of saved the day. It went bad. Like it went really bad, but they did manage to save the kids, and one of them did survive. And you feel for Ruben. Like you feel like, you know, like that was a horror, like talk about a bad day at the office. Ruben had a terrible day at the office. But their conversation in the car about, which is, I sort of lay out kind of the philosophy of the Man in Black. Like, how do you think about your job? How do you approach this job? It makes sense if you're in that car and it's in your ear and this is your job. Like at all, like, it's like, okay, I can go with this. But this is kind of the reverse of that. It's like, well, how does the public receive this sort of philosophy? You know, like if this is the worldview laid out by the Man in Black, what does that mean for people who are unlucky enough to find themselves in their field of view? And like it kind of puts you in the place of, from 75, the girl who's kind of melted in the living room, the guy who got gassed in the kitchen, and these kids that ended up like in foster care. Like there's this kind of impersonal ambivalence to the Man in Black, and which are sort of, you know, there's this kind of these government agencies disinterested in your personal wants and needs. It's all about keeping this thing, like keeping a lid on it. You know, that is the mission. The mission isn't to protect you. The mission isn't to save you. The mission is to kind of keep everything from boiling over. And therefore, you know, you could end up under the wheels sometime, you know, like if like you're getting, and that's kind of where Jenny finds herself, is like, you know, Ruben is in the room watching, and Cynthia is like, you know, she's a, you know, a woman in black.
Sure. Right.
She doesn't feel great about what she's doing. She's absolutely conflicted, but
she's just doing her job.
But it's like, this is what, and she totally believes in her job. Like she believes like this is what has to happen. We can't have you out there telling this story. Like that just can't. So if you're going to be out there, we need you to be completely discredited. You know, we need, like, you have this long record. We're going to use that. Like you need to go back to your drinking and pilling ways, you know?
Right.
And the problem is that, like, yeah, they ran into someone who's had their own story and their own drama and their own kind of little personal horrors, and they've decided, like, no, this isn't an option. Like, maybe this has probably worked for Cynthia, you know, 99 times out of 100. But now she's finally met the one person where it's like, I'm not playing that with you, you know? And
she feels it. You know what I mean? Like, she feels having to make this woman ruin her life for her to advance their narrative.
And you can I think she kind of likes Jenny. Like the way I read it, and I think she's sympathetic to her. And I liked, part of it was her little throwaway thing where it was like the cop that roughed Jenny up. She was like, I'm going to help you get this cop fired. How about that? Like and she didn't have to do that. But I think because deep down, Cynthia was like, she's not a fan of like what happened with Jenny, and she kind of feels for Jenny, and she wants to like make this deal as sweet as she can, even though ultimately, like, she's still screwing her over. Like she's trying, it's almost like she's trying to make it easier on herself by like, well, I tried to help her out, you know, like, and I tried to do this for her. Like it's mostly for her own conscience. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, just A1 book, man. Like, I can't say it enough. I hope everybody that watches this and watches it in the playback picks up this book if they don't have it, and watches this, and because this is like the director's commentary now, right?
Exactly.
I wish we had been able to do the whole book. Like it was so cool to be able to talk to you. But the end part of this book, like the whole book was great, but what we covered today was my absolute favorite part of the entire series to this point. So I'm glad that we got to talk with you about this, because this is what we do it for. Like this is the benchmark that we all want to hit. Like just want to come on the scene and hit a solid triple off the gate, and then follow it up and hit a home run on the next chapter, man. So just a great story set, man. I'm excited to see what you do next.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm excited to, yeah, it takes a while when you're in indie and people, I hope they can kind of hang in there for a little bit, but I'm excited about, like, I had it all charted out. I kind of know the 6 stories I want to tell, and now I'm just kind of executing the plan. So like, I hope it all works out, but I can't thank you guys enough. Like this is, I love your guys' show, and I love the attention you spend on like all the books you do. Yeah. And when I reached out and was like, hey, if you guys are looking for things to review, like, you don't have to, but if you want, like,
I got something. It's my book, I didn't spend much time on it, but
like, I won't be offended. But if you want, if you're hurting for books, here, like, and so when you're like, yeah, we'll do it, it's like, and then it was like, we're gonna do like 2 parts on each book. I was like, oh my god, like, I was like, that's great,
man.
And then we want
it deserved it.
Of course, sure.
That's awesome, man.
No,
it deserved the attention, man. It's a great book. Really,
I mean, especially because we started off with like doing like the 19s and 50s, and then we started finding more indie creators with their own horror comics, and it's just great that we have been able to find people like you, and hopefully other people in the future that focuses and cares about this genre and not just all superhero stuff.
Yeah.
And that's also what I love about what you guys are doing. Is I was thinking about this today. Like, I am not as knowledgeable about comic books as some people. Like, anytime I've gone on Comic Fu and like with Squatchy and the guys, like on their channel, like, I'm very intimidated. Like, these guys, they know their books, they know like issue number and this artist and that writer, and it's like, like I never went that deep into it. And to me, it's a little bit, for me, like personally, it's a little bit like anime, where I've always been interested. And I just don't know where to start.
So he's not like the comic book guy from Simpsons.
No. Like, when
issue 21.
If I listed all my favorite comics, it would be very boring, guys. Like, it would be all like the obvious, it's like Dark Knight Returns and V for Vendetta and Watchmen, and like, all the ones that everybody likes. Because I'm so daunted by even where to go at it, the only ones that get into my orbit are like the big ones that people are talking about. So like, I'll hear about it and it's like, well, I'll read that. So that's what's great about what you guys do. It's like, it makes me aware, and I wish there were more of these like channels where they're like, let's talk about something other than X-Men and Avengers, and like all the, like, let's talk about weird little books. Let's talk about old EC comics. Let's talk about like indies, like where it's like, I would never encounter this. Like, so it also makes me, again, like, just very happy to be amongst this, pantheon that you're going through. So
well, you have a space in it, and it's like you're where we all want to help each other up to the next level, and it's like, I think that just in being able to pick your brain is going to help me to write a little bit better, pay a little bit more attention to detail, and that stuff counts. Like, this is the cool thing about how connected we all are. Like, even though the world is like so bizarre right now, we have access to people that do really, really cool things and can show us how to make our stuff a little bit cooler, because it's all within our reach in all reality. Like, and not even like some deep philosophical way. Just do it. If you got the time for it, do it.
Yeah.
Plot it out.
That's the funny thing. It's such a cliche, when it's like, well, how do you hear that all the time. The only rule that I've come up with from doing this twice now is butt in chair. That's the only one I know. Like, and after that, like, you got to figure out what works best for you. Do you need a schedule or no? Do you want to like do an outline, or no? Do you want to just write beginning to end? Like, whatever you think is going to work. The only rule that I think applies to everyone is like, you just got to carve out time and put your ass in the chair. That's it.
Sure.
Right? And the rest of it will come. But if you're not making, and the best analogy I heard, I recently watched, if you got Amazon Prime, there's this documentary, Shangri-La. It's about Rick Rubin's recording studio in California or something. He's talking about working with artists. And someone asked him a question about songwriting, like what the trick to songwriting is. And his answer was basically, he had a long, very brilliant answer, but basically his answer and his metaphor was, there's no trick. It's just like fishing, though. You can't say, like, I'm going to catch 4 fish today. You don't know that. It may or may not work out. All you can do is go out and sit in the boat and fish. Like, and you got to do that every day. Yeah, and eventually it's going to happen. But you can't just plan, like, I'm going to, you know, write my comic today. I'm going to draw it. It's like you just need to make yourself available every day for work to happen, for creativity to happen, for ideas to come, like that kind of thing. So,
for sure.
All right.
Awesome stuff. Well,
I think we've picked Gary's brain enough.
All right. We're almost at we're at an hour and 40 minutes, the longest that we have.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That
was good stuff, man.
It's been a great episode. I thank you again for coming on. And right now, do you have anything to promote besides the books at the moment?
Just the books. Just the books. I would say, like, you know, if you're interested in the books, of us talking about it makes you want to check them out, you can go to my Etsy shop. That link has been up. If you're interested in, like, process stuff, especially if you're like a fellow creator or a would-be, like you're starting to think about, like, I think I want to try something, go to my YouTube channel. I've got a bunch of videos on both making 75 and 97. They're broken down basically into topics. So there's like a video on using graphics, videos on writing, like whatever. Maybe it'll give you some ideas, or you'll at least see how I did it.
Yeah.
And it'll be helpful, even if you say, like, well, I'm definitely not doing it that way. Like, it at least will help you, you know, figure out, well, what's your way then? Like, I'm not a process tyrant. Whatever way gets you getting finished work done, like that, I'm all for it.
Right.
So, like, I can show you what I did. This is how I did it, you know.
Yes.
Well, I'm definitely into it, man. Like, get the books. Like, yes, get the books. For sure. I can't wait for mine to get here.
They should be close, but $18, it might sound like a lot for 2 indie comics, but I promise you it's a lot of content. It's about 100 pages of content if you do both. So, like, that's
I think that's a reasonable price. I really do.
For sure.
I mean, there's so many books out there that are like DC and Marvel that are a lot more pricey, and they're a lot less pages.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I remember I was going to catch up on Doomsday Clock when it first started. I was like 6 months in. And I went in the store and I grabbed a couple books that I wanted. And I'm like, geez, I'm at like $45 in comics in my hands. And I don't have everything I want. So it's like to find something that catches me up with like a lot of content for $18, well worth it.
Well, and each one is, because it's an anthology, each one is a self-contained story.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, I got it now. What happens next time? Like, you know, you got the whole arc of that character. So, like, you're not going to be, I'm not going to leave you hanging. You're not going to, well, I didn't read the one before, so I don't know what's going on. Like, no.
Each book stands alone.
Yeah.
And Ruben's really the only connection to the first story at the very end of the second story. So, and
it's kind of a little more than a cameo. Like, you can tell he's moved up the world. But
he had to put on some weight.
He'll put on some weight, a little grayer. The hairline's a little higher. You know, like, but otherwise, like, he's still kicking around. But,
just such good stuff, man. All right, well,
Jason,
y'all know where to find me. minicomicbundles.com. Volume 4 just started shipping. I just got mine in the mail today. And
I just ordered all 4 yesterday.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Awesome.
So, I just got these. You're going to love them. Please let me know what you think when you get them. Like, that's pretty much it for me, man. It's like minicomicbundles.com. Check me out on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active. Fallbreaker Studios. What you got, Ronnie?
And me, you could find me here on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, of course. But I am soon going to have in my coffee store some posters that people could get of our new logo. So
nice.
Yeah. I'm going to get one and put it.
So,
I'm putting together my writing area again. So
perfect.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put one in there for sure.
And then, of course, Jason he has seen pages and he knows my story. So hopefully soon I'm going to have some stuff out for more of the audience to read on my whole like 80s / genre, because, you know, it's a very challenging book, but it's so fun where you're like, you have like the bright neon colors for the 80s, but when you get into like the horror aspect where the demons change in reality and he's changing into black and white reality, you know, it's a great transition, but it's going to turn out great. So, you know,
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. But thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Gary, for coming on. Definitely with your books coming out in the future, we're going to have you on as another guest, and for sure,
you're stuck with us now, Gary.
Right?
Hey, sounds great to me. That sounds good.
All right. Hey,
everybody have a good week.
Take care. Have a good night. Thanks again, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Peace. Bye.